Bizarre Reality Media.
Indiana County 911. My brother's gone. Can you be a little more specific, sir? He took my brother. Who took him? I don't know who took him. I don't know what. Sir, take a breath. Explain to me what happened.
And I looked out and there was this big red blinking UFO.
I can just say this. Something's going on in the woods. Something's going on.
They're not dogs, they're not coyotes. What could it be, right?
I had an encounter with a skunk ape, and it completely altered the course of my life.
I found a skull. Are you guys going to want to come build this? Put him out. I just see it.
Sightings of a UFO hovering over a barn.
Millie woke up from a dream, and when I went into the bedroom, she said, "There's a monster on the wall."
They saw that the creature had run through a barbed wire fence. They were able to obtain hairs. They sent the hairs to their lab, and it came back as an unknown creature.
Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin.
What is up, Bizarrites, and welcome back to the most bizarre show on the internet. I am the one that people call Shane Squatch, I am the one that people call Shane, aka the original Shane Squatch. Messing up my own name over here. I fucked it up last week. It's bound to happen again, I guess, on this show. But alongside me, I have the usual, the big bad boo daddy himself, Sir Orin Felix.
Daddy, chill.
And I brought that one back. You're welcome.
I was going to say, that's a deep cut. We're back to the daddy chill.
I figured that, if I overuse it too much, then people are going to get sick of it. But if I use it enough to make it funny and then get rid of it for a while and bring it back, people will love it, man. That's the trick.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. Just absolutely driving things into the ground and overusing them are one of the rocks upon which this church is built.
Hey, we've been trying our best not to overkill it with sound clips lately. I mean, I have some funny ones for this one. I'm not going to overkill it and overplay it, but I definitely have some that I'm going to have to drop in here and there because you got to have some fun when you're talking about these bizarre topics, man.
Well, I am eagerly anticipating.
And we definitely got a weird one today, but we'll get into that in just a moment. But before we get into that, of course, we got some news and updates. First and foremost, we are going to be doing some new structural changes to the show. First and foremost, we are not going to front load the show so much. We're basically going to be doing some updates. We're going to give you our guys' contact info and then hop right into the show, make it so that you guys aren't sitting around and waiting too long while we're going through the front of house stuff. Also, as kind of an extension of that, we wanted to kind of personally get to know you guys a little bit more. So something we might start including in the beginning intro is story time, where we're basically just going to tell some funny stories and stuff that happened to us throughout the week. Not necessarily show related, but just some fun stuff on a side note. The next big thing that I'm going to try to do is there's going to be less ad break interruptions. As anybody remembers in the past that I said using Spreaker, they make you do 5 ad breaks. I recently found a way around that where I can basically just do 3, and I kind of like space them out where basically it'll be less ad interruptions. So going through the show, there will be less ad breaks. So I think that'll be a really cool thing as far as you guys go too, because I'm sure everybody, hates listening to ad breaks and stuff. And then the last thing, of course, we're going to be trying to build a chat community. I don't know if, Orin, if you're going to end up getting involved in it, because I don't know if you really like doing the chat community type stuff, but it's something I've always pushed off to the side, so I want to make sure that I'm going to be active in it and be able to actually connect with you guys on a personal level. So as an extension of that, I'm just trying to decide whether or not we want to do it on Telegram, Discord, or I was even thinking that we could even possibly use like an Instagram group or a Facebook group as an option. So there is a survey down in the show description. You guys can let me know what you think. You guys don't have to enter your emails or anything. It's just a couple, it's 3 little boxes. You just check which one you want to do. There's not too much involved in it. Literally will take you guys like 5 seconds. And of course, we would definitely appreciate it. And it'll be the first step into building up a better, bigger community with you guys. So yeah, a lot of fun, exciting stuff going on, man.
And speaking of fun and exciting stuff, our next episode of Bizarre Inquiries, which is our YouTube live show.
The last one was a banger, guys. Definitely go check it out if you didn't.
Yeah, I think it was probably the best episode we've done so far. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this next one ends up just as good. But anyway, that episode is going to be January the 8th. That's a Thursday. It's going to be roughly 7:15 Eastern time on the Bizarre Reality Media YouTube channel. So you
finally
guys
getting it.
I know it only took what, like 2 or 3 months.
Now it feels smooth. Now I would say weird. It would feel weird to say Open Minds Media now.
I don't know. It's still not smooth, but we're getting there. But anyway, so you guys be sure to submit questions or articles or videos or anything like that you want us to inquire about. And also be sure to join us in the chat during the episode. And if anyone is interested in getting up with us for any reason whatsoever, whether that be being a guest on the show or sharing their experiences or anything else, Shayn, tell them how they can do that.
First and foremost, you guys can get a hold of us through email, which is bizarreencounters@outlook.com. You guys could also call or text the Bizarre Reality Media hotline, and you guys can do that 24/7, and that number is 313-364-1551. And if you guys happen to miss that, it is available down in the show description.
All right, guys. So tonight's episode is something a little bit different. It's not going to be really a deep dive, but this is something that Shayn has been talking about wanting to cover for a while on the show. So I'm going to kick it over to him and let him tell all you guys what we got on deck for y'all tonight.
So just to preface this a little bit, originally we were supposed to have a guest on today, but I received an email from him this morning basically saying that he gave his computer a coffee bath. So he was unfortunately not able to make it today. As we usually kind of schedule stuff, we set it up so that we kind of have like a show we work on each month. So unfortunately, we didn't have anything fully prepared today, but we still want to be able to put out an episode for you guys. So one thing that I've been sitting on for a little while now is this article about human... I guess what would you call it exactly? Human manipulation, I guess. You know, it's kind of like cattle manipulation, but UFO stuff.
Mutilation?
Mutilation. There it is. Yeah, I'm messing it up. Yeah, mutilation. So this is something...
I mean, the humans are probably manipulated, too.
They were manipulated, physically. Yeah. So that definitely works, too. But... yeah, see, I had to bring up the article. I didn't have the article up yet. I was one of those words sitting on the tip of my mind. But this article is something that I've been sitting on for a little while. I was maybe going to turn it into a show at one point, but what ended up happening was, we kind of fell into this spot. So we're going to give full credit to the person that originally wrote this article. So it comes from Badaliens.info. And this one is definitely a little bit more of a mature audience type of episode. There are a lot of pictures involved with this. I don't think we're going to be able to post it on YouTube or anything like that. So you guys would probably just have to check out the video portion of this on the Patreon. But if anybody is interested in checking out this article and seeing the pictures with this article, I will include it down in the show description. But just a heads up before you guys listen to this, if you guys are with your kids, anything like that, it does get a little bit vulgar. Not even just us going into Bizarre Encounters After Dark, so just a little bit of a warning. But, I mean, I guess that should be expected with human mutilations, right? All right, so I'm going to bring this article up so that, anybody watching on the Patreon is able to see the screen. And while we're in between for 2 seconds, I'm actually going to grab my water real quick because I left it on the counter over here. Can't do a show without a drink, it's kind of impossible. Got the good old
that's my philosophy anyway.
Topo Chico. Got some carbonated water, my friend.
You got it fancy tonight.
I got it super fancy. I'm Alex Jones styling it. I don't know if you've noticed, but every single time Alex Jones burps on the show, it's usually because he's drinking Topo Chico. So
I don't watch a lot of Alex Jones content, so I'll just take your word for that.
Well, this stuff's good, man. It's some water that has just as much bite as like McDonald's Coke. So if you like carbonated shit, but you don't necessarily want all the sugar, this is definitely a good way to go. But that's kind of where I'm at now currently is I'm trying to not drink so much pop. So good old sparkling mineral water. But without the interjection, hopping back into the show. Human mutilation is arguably the most controversial aspect of the UFO phenomenon. Very few cases exist in the public domain. This is one area that the New Age /CE5 Love and Light Brigade ignores as it doesn't fit into their narrative. As you can imagine, such cases as these will be kept under a tight lid, where possible by the authorities. I've listed what I've come across in chronological order. So hopping into the first one, and again, this one does have some graphic pictures as it states right at the top. Sergeant Jonathan P. Lovett, 1956. Air Force Sergeant Jonathan P. Lovett was assisting Major William Cunningham in the White Sands Missile Testing Grounds near Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. While searching for scattered debris from a recent rocket test, Cunningham was shocked when he heard a loud scream. Thinking Lovett had perhaps been bitten by a snake, English recounts Cunningham crossed the dune to aid his partner when he purportedly witnessed one of the most bizarre human extraterrestrial encounters. Instead of finding Lovett nursing a snake bite, Cunningham, according to England, recounted seeing the soldier being dragged by a long, serpentine arm wrapped around his legs, connecting to a silver disc hovering in the air 15 to 20 feet away. Cunningham watched, frozen in horror, as Lovett was pulled inside the craft, which then rose vertically into the sky. The Major then stumbled towards his Jeep and radioed for assistance. Security teams arrived, and the disturbed Cunningham was confined in the base hospital for observation and treatment after retelling what he believed he witnessed. According to Joseph's Military Encounters book, base personnel did confirm an unidentified radar contact near Holloman at the time Lovett vanished. The base dispatched search parties into the desert, but it would be 3 days before Lovett's nude corpse was discovered, some 10 miles from the site of the alleged abduction. From all indications, the body had been exposed to the elements for 24 to 48 hours. According to England, the report offered no explanation of what might account for the missing third day, and the autopsy confirmed on Lovett raised more questions than delivered answers. First question was, why had Lovett's corpse been so severely mutilated? His tongue had been cut from his lower portion of his jaw, his eyes gouged out, and his anus removed. And keep in mind here, anus removed is going to be a regular thing that we end up talking about here. So just to throw that one in here. In the Air Force medical examination report pertaining to the incident, England alleges that the coroner remarked on the apparent surgical skill used to remove the organs, in particular, that the anus and genitalia had been neatly extracted like a plug. Perhaps most puzzling was the fact that the body had been completely drained of blood, but surprisingly, there was no vascular collapse, usually associated with death by bleeding. There are several from all across the United States. The one that stands out the most took place at White Stages Missile Range. 2 men, a lieutenant and a sergeant, were sent downrange to recover what they could from a missile that had been test-fired. The 2 men had become separated by a large sand dune, and as the lieutenant searched his area, he began to hear screaming from the sergeant and climbed the dune to see the sergeant being lifted into the air by something. He reported back to missile control, and the search began. There you go. There's a typo. And the search had began for the sergeant. 3 days later, the sergeant's mutilated body was found apparently 3/4 of a mile away from where he was last seen. The lieutenant was interrogated extensively and ultimately given a medical discharge from the military. An adamantium to the report says that the lieutenant committed suicide within 6 months after being discharged. And the source for this one is Tony Dodd, 1996, alien investigator Bill English. So if anybody wants to look more into that, that is exactly where you guys can go and find it. So any thoughts on this one before we hop into the second one, sir?
Yeah, right off the bat, the first thing that kind of jumped out to me was that this took place at the White Sands Missile Testing Ground. We talk all the time about the connections between UFO sightings and like military installations and especially like nuclear facilities. So I thought that was kind of a weird connection right off the bat. And then just kind of more general connections, which I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot more throughout the article. Just the fact that this has all the hallmarks of cattle mutilations, the surgical precision, the being drained of blood, the missing genitals. And, I think it makes a lot of sense that if extraterrestrials or malevolent entities or whatever you want to call it are doing those sorts of experiments on animals or livestock, what's to keep them from doing it on people? So like I said, I'm sure we'll get into that a lot more as we go along, but just some more general thoughts on my end to start us off with.
I mean, who's to say they don't see us as animals to begin with,
Exactly.
if they are something else to begin with? But another comment that I wanted to make was the whole idea of anal probing. Like, as far as I've come across any of my research, I don't know about you, but I haven't come across that other than in, like, sci-fi, for example. Going into this is like one of the first cases that you really hear about it with like a human where there's something being removed from the anus, the anus itself being removed. This was back in the 1950s. So I almost kind of wonder if that whole concept of anal probing may have partially been like soft disclosure from maybe this incident that happened on this base, because that seems like it may have been around that time when people were kind of anal probes making a joke. Because, I mean, you try to soft disclose that and you kind of put that into the public mind anyways. Then if these weird things happen, I don't know, maybe it kind of somewhat sets the stage for if this does theoretically happen. But like I said, I've never come across anything actually involving any type of anal probing, but this is like the closest thing that I've come across to that in real life alien UFO stuff.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything like super specific, but I feel like the Betty and Barney Hill incident, it's kind of alluded to that something like that could have happened to Barney Hill. But it seems like the details that he shared or have been shared with the public are a little vague about that. But I got the impression just from things I've read and heard that there's definitely a kind of sexual aspect to some of the stuff that happened to Barney Hill.
Why is it that it seems like these more, I guess you could say, like sexual type things with extraterrestrials seem to happen more in the past? Like, I'm sure that there probably is some cases that are a little bit more recent, but it seems like there's a lot less of the sexual stuff nowadays when it comes to the alien stuff. Like, a lot of the time it's like people have these interactions where they'll like fix ailments and things like that. They may be tested on in a lab and stuff like that. But I don't know. It just seems like the sexual component isn't as prevalent in modern cases as it was in cases from, like the 50s to like the 70s, for example.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about all the time how John Keel talks about like the very sexual nature of a lot of these even cryptid encounters, but especially like alien abductions and visitations and whatnot. So yeah, definitely an interesting point. So moving on to number 2 on the list, and this is one that our listeners might be a little bit more familiar with.
This was one that we could probably touch back on at some point and do a full episode, but it's fun to at least touch it on the show.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the Dyatlov Pass incident of 1959. So the Dyatlov Pass incident, yeah, there's a lot of typos in this article. There's one right here in the first line. So it was an event in which 9 Russian hikers died in the northern Ural Mountains between 1st and 2nd February 1959 in uncertain circumstances. The experienced trekking group from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, led by Igor Dyatlov, had established a camp on the eastern slope of Kholat Syakh. How do you think that one would be pronounced, Shane?
Kholat Syakh. That's my best
sounds
guess.
Good to me. Yeah,
good enough.
Sounds good to me. During the night, something caused them to cut their way out of their tent and flee the campsite while inadequately dressed for the heavy snowfall and sub-zero temperatures. After the group's bodies were discovered, an investigation by Soviet authorities determined that 6 had died from hypothermia, while the other 3 had been killed by physical trauma. 1 victim had major skull damage, 2 had severe chest trauma, and another had a small crack in the skull. 4 of the bodies were found lying in running water in a creek, and 3 of these had soft tissue damage of the head and face. 2 of the bodies were missing their eyes, 1 was missing its tongue, and 1 was missing its eyebrows. The investigation concluded that a, quote, compelling natural force had caused the deaths. Both Ludmila, these are Russian names I'm just going to skip over. You guys can read them if you want to.
And Krivosauskio. I'm just going to have some fun with it. Why not?
All right. I'll kick those back over to you. Had radiation present on them. They had broken ribs, but no soft tissue chest damage indicative of a shockwave type event. Numerous theories have been put forward to account for the unexplained deaths, including animal attacks, hypothermia, avalanche, katabatic winds, infrasound-induced panic, military involvement, or some combination of these.
I know that at least avalanche had been thrown off because I've done a lot of research into this one, and they always throw that as a theory for this for whatever reason. But from all the pictures, even if you go and look at them, like you can clearly tell there wasn't any type of avalanche. Otherwise, there would have been a lot more snow packed into the area. So I find it weird that they always, anytime anybody talks about this, that gets thrown in as a theory. But you look at the pictures once and you know that that was definitely not what happened in this situation.
Well, and an avalanche doesn't rip your fucking eyeballs out of your skull
and your tongue out of your mouth.
Yeah. All right, so moving on. Another group of hikers 31 miles south of the incident reported that they saw strange orange spheres in the sky to the north on the night of the incident. Similar spheres were observed in Ivdel and adjacent areas continually during the period from February to March 1959 by various independent witnesses, including the Meteorological Service and the military. These sightings were not noted in the 1959 investigation, and the various witnesses came forward years later. As time has passed, numerous video documentaries and websites have been produced on the incident. Looking at the case through the eyes of UFO incidents, I suspect we have an early example here of what has unfortunately occurred since human mutilation by UFO.
Which I definitely like that theory as far as this goes, because I've heard a lot of people throw like the Yeti theory, but I guess, this would have been Russia, so it would have been an Alamacy technically. But it just seems so like violent and bizarre, and there were specific body parts removed. Like, obviously something weird happened. My best guess on this one was it definitely could be UFO related or military related, or as we've talked about a million times on the show, those could potentially even be the same thing.
Yeah, for real.
And for anybody that's an video watcher on the Patreon, there are some pictures of the bodies that were found. If anybody wants to check them out on your own free will, the link is available down in the show description. But again, just a forewarning, these are graphic pictures of dead body parts and dead people, so don't click on it unless you are fully comfortable with seeing that.
Yep.
So let's see, hopping into the third one now. Laos, Vietnam War, 1970. This incident was brought into the public domain in 1987 at the MUFON conference by Bill English. Bill and his Army colleagues were tasked with locating a downed B-52 bomber. Once they had located the aircraft, the first thing they had noticed was how intact the craft was. It looked like it had been placed rather than crashed. Once they entered the crew compartment, they noticed the crewmen of a B-52 were found with typical mutilation injuries still strapped to their seats. Missing eyes, jaw stripped, ears, etc. One of the team removed a crewman from his seat and noticed the airman had his anus cored out, which there's another case of that. Photos were taken at the scene.
I got to stop you right there.
I figured that you want to pop in there.
Anus cored out might be one of the unintentionally funniest collection of words I've ever heard.
It very much so draws a picture, but I'm assuming that this was a little bit more surgical. So at least hearing cord out, it doesn't sound very surgical, but I imagine that a lot more, Rusty Saw style.
All right, so let's get on with the anus coring out.
And there are pictures of it if anybody wants to go and check that out, but we'll get back to that. I don't know what kind of weird shit you're into, but there are pictures available. Photos were taken at the scene, as I mentioned. They then detonated the craft and returned to base. They reported their findings to their superior. They were told not to talk, otherwise there would be repercussions. Bizarrely, Bill said he saw the same photographs he and his group took when he was stationed at RAF Chicksands in 1973. He was working for the NSA and the data analyst. One day, a thick volume of UFO ETs called Grudge/Blue Book 13 was placed on his desk. Pursuing, though, he came across several human mutilation cases, including the B-52 case. Bill decided to go public and his experience in 1987. Consequently, he was threatened and harassed. At one point, had to move to a new house. So, the videos and the pictures of that are within this video. So, if anybody wants to check that out, again, you guys can do that on your own free will. We apologize, guys, for the interference, but we will be right back. And now back to the show.
Okay, so moving on to number 4. This one is just called Idaho, 1979. Don Ecker heard of a possible human mutilation case from MUFON State Director Don Mason. According to the report, in 1979, 2 hunters in the Bliss and Jerome area of Idaho stumbled upon the nude body of a man. The body was in the middle of nowhere, nude except for a pair of underpants. His sexual organs had been removed, his lips sliced off, and several other classic mutilation cuts. Although he was in a very rugged country, his bare feet were not marked as if he had walked in that terrain. But yet no other tracks, animal or human, were evident anywhere. After the police were notified, an intensive search was mounted, and miles away, the man's possessions were recovered. Yet no one yet knows how the body ended up where it was found, or even more importantly, what happened to him. It should be noted that this area also had over the years many unexplained UFO reports and cattle mutilations. So something that kind of really jumps out to me about this one is it sounds like it has a lot of similarities to like the whole missing 411.
I'm glad that you said that. I was about to hop in and say the same thing.
Yeah, so like where they'll find bodies or possessions of a missing person, and they'll find it, miles and miles away from their last known location and in an area that has already been searched. And then, like the classic example I always talk about is, they'll search for these missing kids or whatever, not find anything. And then months or years later, they find like the kids' neatly folded pants, like sitting on a log in an area that was like clearly searched. So I think that's kind of interesting. And then like raises a lot of questions about the connection between missing 411 and aliens and abductions. And even, like you said, government testing or whatnot, and what could really be going on in these missing 411 cases.
And it's something else to even think about. I mean, going into the missing 411 stuff, the bodies that are never recovered, is it possible that some of these same mutilations might be seen on those bodies, such as, possibly the anus being cored out, things like that? Because even if that was a thing that happens regularly on these bodies that are found for missing 411, I kind of feel like that would be one of those things that they would hide, and they would kind of keep that secret because, somebody going missing at a national park is already scary enough, but then they add on the fact of, somebody maybe cut their lips off, cored their anus out, all that stuff, dude. I feel like that's going to be some of that stuff that is kept out of the public. So I think there might be a good portion of this phenomenon seen within missing 411. It's just, again, not reported on, or even kind of going into another different chain of thought. How many of these bodies that they never potentially found are maybe even eaten by animals? Or as another connection with that, getting into some of these other cases, if the bodies are partially radioactive, maybe some of the animals won't eat them because they can sense that they're partially radioactive. I don't know, kind of just a weird thing to think about.
Yeah, that's definitely a good thought.
But all right, hopping into the next one, we have, all right, I'm already going to butcher this word, Guarapiranga. I'm going to go with that. Guarapanga Reservoir, Brazil, 1988. The body of a male was found at the Guarapiranga Reservoir in Brazil. I'm just going to have fun with it. I don't know how to pronounce it properly. I apologize, everybody. I don't
just
speak
make grunting
Spanish.
noises.
They're good enough. If I just jumble through it, it should work. You'll get the point. According to reports, the victim had been dead for 48 to 72 hours, but there was no sign of decomposition. The eyes, ears, tongue, and genitalia had been removed, as had the digestive organs. That one's a new one. As had the digestive organs. That's a bizarre one. Although it was determined that the person had been dead for several days, there was no smell when it should have been present with the stench of decay. Encarnacion Garcia learned from his friend Dr. Rubens Goes, there you go, there's a little bit easier of a name, that he was in possession of some rather odd photos, which had been given to him by his cousin, police technician Rubens Sergio. There were official photos of the body that had been found near Reserve on the 29th of September, 1988, of an unnamed male who was, however, later identified. The autopsy report stated there has been a removal of extensive tissue along with many parts of his face, head, and neck of the victim. There has also been extraction of ocular tissue. That was a new one. There has also been extraction of ocular tissue, eyes, auditive internal and external organs / ears, and the internal parts of the head. The tongue and several muscles were also extracted. There you go. I'm messing that one up. Sorry. I'm messing myself up now. I'm overthinking it. The axillary regions of both sides showed soft spots where organs had been removed. Incisions were made on the face, internal thorax, am I reading that right? Thorax, abdomen, legs, arms, and chest. As Garcia observed, the doctor stated that his wounds were quite uncommon. The report also observed shoulders and arms have perforations of 1 to 1.5 inches in diameter where tissue and muscles were extracted. The edges of the perforations were uniform, and so was their size. The chest had shrunken due to the removal of internal organs, and it was as if whatever caused the wounds sucked the muscles through these holes. The holes were determined not to be bullet holes. And here's some pictures that Orin's allowed to see. But again, if anybody wants to go and check it out on the other side, they're more than welcome to. But yeah, there's these exact holes.
Yeah, fair warning, they're a little gnarly.
Yeah, they literally have. There you go. There's a cored out butthole for you, my friend. If you'd love to see an actual official picture of a cored out butthole. I love that terminology, dude.
Fucking aliens! Where?
Anything to add to this one before we move on?
The lack of profuse bleeding suggests the use of a laser-like instrument producing acute heat, thus cauterizing almost immediately the edges of the wounds. There's another super weird detail. So throws even more so into the whole extraterrestrial aspect of things that not only is it surgically done, but it's surgically done by a laser. That's like a whole other level of surgically done, my friend.
Yeah, and I think the whole, like, kind of the holes being cored out and, like, the organs looking like they were sucked through the holes, like, that's really interesting. I mean, that's kind of...
You see the chest right here? Or, like, the stomach where it's, like, all the intestines are removed? Like, you can literally see these, like, pelvic bones right here. Like, that is crazy, dude.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good smoking gun for this is, you know, either extraterrestrials or some super duper advanced government technology that was doing all this. But, you know, this was a long time ago when this case occurred. So, I mean, I think this one's pretty interesting and leans me heavily to believe in like some sort of extraterrestrial intervention.
Yeah, I kind of lean more towards that. I mean, I definitely acknowledge the fact that they say that our technology is 30 years more advanced than what the general public is aware of. But I don't know, maybe I'm just speaking from a moral standpoint that I could just say like, people couldn't do this to other people, but we've clearly seen that people are capable of doing this type of stuff to other people. So I guess with the right technology, I mean, I wouldn't put it past people. I mean, I could go either way on it, man. I feel like this could also go into my continued Nazi experiment theory, but on the other side, if you have another whole race of beings that don't even see us necessarily as, you know, the same level as them, you know, this is no different than if, you know, somebody was cutting up and prepping for like a deer, for example, you know, they just don't see it and don't have that same connection with it.
Yeah, or like experimenting on mice or whatever.
And I mean, just a weird thing to think about. What could the use be for the stuff on the inside? Because clearly they're not using it as a food source. Otherwise, you'd be taking like all of the meat, for example. But they're taking all these internal organs like they're almost being like reused or something. Like I can't think of like any possible use why you wouldn't just take the whole body and repurpose all of it. Why would you just take these random specific things? I mean, the genitals, of course, you know, DNA and all that kind of stuff. But when you start getting into the fact that there's this regular trait of the jaw being removed, that one's kind of bizarre. And the fact that this one also had like parts of the eye removed, which I don't know, maybe gets into some DNA stuff too. But I don't know, this has been kind of like the weirdest one so far.
Yeah, I definitely agree. All right, so moving on to number 6. This one is called Brazil. No further information at present. All right, so above image was sent to me recently. One can see a lack of blood surrounding body, lip removed, eyes removed, holes in limbs similar to previous Brazil case. So yeah, this is just a couple pictures of, looks like a young man with very similar holes in his body to the last picture and his, or last case rather, and his eyes removed.
It's pretty
Shane,
crazy.
You want me to do the next one since that one was so short?
Yeah, if you want to, you can hop into the next one. Just to make a comment, though, for anybody that does have the balls to actually go and look at these pictures. And again, you know, don't do it unless you're fully aware of what you're getting yourself into, because we're warning you now, these are pretty graphic pictures. But the eye removed, dude, that's pretty crazy looking, dude. Like,
yeah, it's pretty freaky.
My assumption would be like you'd pop it out with like a spoon or some type of like, but the way that I'm looking at it now, especially looking at this eye over here, like, it doesn't even look like the eye casing was, like, opened to pull anything out. It looks like it's still that normal shrunken size, but on the other side, it looks like it was almost cored out.
Yeah, it looks like everything's just, like, removed. It's not like, you know, somebody, like, plucked the eye out. It's like, you know, all the tissue and everything behind the eye is gone, too. Yeah, it's pretty freaky, honestly. Like, I mean, we're not trying to be graphic or anything, but yeah, you guys definitely be careful if you're going to look at these. It's not for the faint of heart. So.
I just want to throw this in here because I was trying to think about a connection with lips. And the only connection I could think of with why they would have an interest in the lips is, weird little fun fact for everybody. Your skin on your lips and your butthole are the same skin. So if there's a reason for coring out the butthole, because clearly it's not anything genetic, like maybe it has something to do with that particular type of skin. Maybe it's more malleable, maybe you can do more with it. But if that's the case, that they're not necessarily going after the butthole, but they're going after that specific skin type, then it would also kind of make sense and translate why they're also removing and taking the lips.
Yeah, no, that's a good thought. I hadn't really put that together, but don't they say that's like some of the thinnest skin on the body as well?
And it also tends to heal the fastest too. So I don't know, maybe there's something just genetically different about that skin that makes it more usable for whatever the interest is genetically.
Not if it's been cored out, am I right?
Yeah, that's true. That ain't healing anytime soon, my friend.
So moving on to number 7, this one is called UK Human Mutilations 1990s.
And there are videos all through these, by the way, if anybody wants even more additional context. We're obviously not going to go through here and play all these like 5-minute videos, but again, if anybody wants to go and check it out, also available throughout this article.
Okay, so according to UK UFO researcher Tony Dodd, he came across several accounts of human mutilation in the UK. He relates the story of 7 people found dead over a period of several weeks in the same field, that's interesting, in Dalby Forest, North Yorks. Classic mutilation involving the removal of tongues, eyes, bloodless, and hairless. At the time the story started to leak out, a cover story created by unknown persons of mannequins being placed in the field was circulated to the press. Tony states in these situations the bodies remain, quote, missing, as potentially awkward questions would be asked about the cause of death by the families. Well, that kind of gets back to our talking about the missing 411 stuff.
That was exactly what I was thinking when you read that line too, because again, something this extreme, they try to keep under wraps. Like even the serial killer stuff. Look at anything that's ever come out about any serial killer. Any of the like details of their crime doesn't come out until way after the court case. And usually it's not stuff that's generally like fully released to the public. It's all stuff that people have to go out and look for on their own. Like when Jeffrey Dahmer was being talked about, like in news stories, for example, you know, they would say that we found this many bodies, we'd found this, but they wouldn't give those details of the fact that he was like literally like boiling the skin off, doing all of this type of stuff. So, you know, it's certain things that you just can't put out into the general public in general because people are going to have a freak out. But you also add in the, we don't even know what the hell is doing this factor. And yeah, it would completely make sense that you have to completely keep this under wraps so that people don't freak out. Especially if it's happening in a national park, for example, like I was saying with Missing 411, because nobody would step foot in that park again, you know?
Yeah, for sure. But no, that was something I was thinking about as well, like the whole serial killer angle. And I'm sure a lot of people would kind of use that to try to, you know, sweep a lot of this stuff under the rug. And, you know, maybe in 1 or 2 of these cases, that might be a valid excuse. But like we talked about, like just the precision and like the weird holes and just how perfect all this is. I mean, a lot of these clearly aren't being done. I won't say not being done by humans, but definitely not by just some crazy serial killer.
Also, too, just to throw in the whole throwing off serial killer thing, a lot of these are done in third world countries and countries that just, there's no way in hell these people are going to be like having the most advanced technology and be some serial killer that's just out here killing people. Like it's either government related or it's something completely different, you know? It wouldn't make sense to me that the average person, especially in a third world country, have the ability to do any of this type of stuff or even have the means to have the equipment to try to pull off this kind of stuff.
So not to derail us too much, but the only caveat that I would say to that, and a lot of these are, you know, older cases that happened decades ago. One of the times we were talking about the Peruvian face peelers.
I was waiting to bring that up.
Probably the most recent time we talked about this idea. This could be like some sort of like elite hunting type situation. So, I mean, that could kind of explain some of the third world countries. And if, you know, these elite sickos are doing that, I could kind of see them taking like eyes or, you know, these
like
genitals or whatever as trophies. Yeah. So just kind of a weird angle on that.
And that's not even unheard of. Just, again, not to totally derail, but I was just listening to a podcast the other day that was talking about in 1996, it was in Eastern Europe somewhere, but there was like the whole war that was going on in Eastern Europe, the Bolivian War, something like that. But anyways, there was this group where the military would literally have rich people from like England, from America, all these places come to this like sniper watch point, and they would basically get a sniper rifle handed to them, and they would have the ability to basically just pick off people in this village for fun. Like, it was just sport hunting, essentially. And they would pay according to what they would shoot. Like, I remember them saying, like, if you shot somebody old, it was free. If you shot a man, it was this much. If you shot a woman, it was, like, mid-range. And if you shot a kid, then that's when you're going to pay the max amount for it. But this was happening back in 1996. So if there was already cases that aren't even that long ago of people finding the abilities to basically go on elite hunting trips, I mean, it doesn't seem out of the possibility, you know?
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I'm going to jump back into the article. Dodd goes on to relate in 1997 that one of his contacts witnessed the removal of a body with a hearse nearby and an official car with a blue light on the inside by the windscreen. Dodd feels it could have been a military or a Ministry of Defense, vehicle, but there are no markings on it. One of Dodd's friends was a friend of The Undertaker, like the pro wrestler The Undertaker.
Yeah, exactly.
Involved in these retrievals. He approached The Undertaker, who flatly refused to talk about it.
Not today, my friend.
His friend lately approached another Undertaker from the area who said he is unable to talk about it due to the Official Secrets Act. Man, that's the most Harry Potter sounding thing I've ever heard, the Official Secrets Act.
So is the Ministry of Defense. And for anybody that's not familiar with that, that's basically like the English, CIA? Is it more like CIA or FBI? One of those two.
Yeah, like everything over there is like the Ministry, like the Ministry of Magic.
It sounds super fancy.
It does. Those limey Brits. Anyway, The Undertaker said there have been more than 7 retrievals. Quote, 7 is the tip of the iceberg, end quote. Interestingly, Dodd goes on to relate that in February of 1997, in the same forest, the dead bodies of 7 rabbits, 1 ox, 1 badger, 1 sheep, and 1 deer were discovered in an area no bigger than the average family sitting room. That's kind of weird. They each had a hole in their head, their rectum cord, and square patches of their skin neatly removed. Man, you just cannot say their rectum cord and not laugh.
I'm going to have to make like a clip or something out of that. We'll just throw that into some future episodes with us. How many times we said it this episode? I'm just going to go through the whole episode.
Like a rectum counter.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through the whole episode, and every time we say rectum cord, I'm going to turn it into a little montage.
The second case involved an 8-year-old girl in Staffordshire.
Staffordshire?
The third case involved 2 individuals found in Talibont Mountain in the Bacons. In August of 1990, an SUV was found with the engine running and the seats were missing. That's kind of crazy. 2 weeks later, 3 kilometers from the car, a male and female body were found laid out side by side. No blood, no genitals, teeth, ears, lips, eyes. The male was skinless.
Whoa.
Breasts removed on the female.
That's a new detail right there. The male was skinless.
Huh. UFO researchers Richard Hall and Derek Groh have both met up with an unidentified former Army man, Mr. X.
Love it.
Who claimed to be part of a crack U.S.-led NATO team. So is it Tyrone Biggums, a crack U.S.-led NATO team?
Tyrone's part of the U.S. military. We're part of NATO.
Called Group 58 Security, whose task was to search for any evidence and seal off areas where UFO activity had been monitored. He said incidents had occurred all over the world, including Australia, Iceland, Scotland, and Spain, amongst others. He witnessed 30 to 40 mutilated human beings over the course of his post. The bodies recovered had the classic neat edge surgical precision.
I just want to throw this in that this is clearly something that is a regularly happening occurrence that is regularly also covered up. Like I was saying in the beginning, there's probably a lot of
protocols in place for this sort of thing.
Yeah, like, dude, I guarantee you that there are a bunch of cases of missing 411 that this has happened to, that it was just not mentioned in the report at all whatsoever, and they purposely left it out of the report.
Yeah, going through this, I think that's like the most interesting thing to me is I definitely feel like there's probably a lot of overlap between missing 411 cases and this type of activity. And whereas, a lot of these are in, like you said, third world countries and whatnot, maybe that's just how the U.S. chooses to cover these up, I mean, even on the other side, it's honestly the same motif in any country you look at. These are all happening in the middle of some forest, in the middle of some national park, in the middle of some jungle. Like, it's purposefully like in these same
archetype locations in every country. I mean, obviously you're not gonna be able to get away with this stuff like if you try to abduct somebody in the middle of the city or something like that, but I don't know, there's a connection clearly with being out in the woods and having some type of like this happen. Like I don't know what the connection exactly is, but there's some connection with that. Like
a lot of similarities.
Maybe just looking for the opportunity that somebody's out by themselves in the middle of the woods, but even so, you get into missing 411 and a lot of the time people will be in a group. Somebody will walk off for 2 seconds, boom, gone, disappeared. So I mean, if you're looking at it from that aspect of things, is it possible that whatever could be doing this, whether it is extraterrestrials or maybe even something different, like these are the places where they live and they're basically, you know, guerrilla warfaring and waiting for the proper opportunity to be able to abduct and or take somebody?
Or, you know, it's like some sort of predator situation and these are like designated hunting grounds for them. Who knows?
It's almost like, you know, Cabin in the Woods, talk about soft disclosure. Yeah. The whole premise of that they're like, all right, everybody goes to here. We got to sacrifice so many people and then they'll leave us alone. So, you know, that could be the case with some of these spots, as messed up as it sounds, you know, like, especially in Europe, for example. You know, we've talked about this a bunch of times. Well, I don't even want to say Europe, Scandinavia. Be a little bit more specific because I hate when you say that. You know, they have the areas where they'll completely reroute roads because there's like ferry areas in the woods. You know, if they're already acknowledging these areas in the US, we could even be acknowledging these areas. We could take, you know, the national parks could literally be like reserved cryptid areas, but we just can't call it that directly. And the assumption is, you know, you throw so many in and, you know, so many aren't going to come back, but that's expected. And as long as you have people coming in, they're not going to come out of that area, you know?
No, I think that's definitely a good thought. And I wasn't expecting this subject in this article to hit on so many other things that we talk about on the show. So definitely interesting. All right. So jumping back in, once the area was sealed off, the second team of U.S. scientists would arrive to remove the material for analysis. The latter was nicknamed the Collectors. That sounds ominous.
Right.
Individuals recovered would remain on missing persons lists and details not given to local authorities indefinitely.
Boom, there it is.
There you go. Mr. X handed 11 photos to Derek showing the mutilations of 2 individuals, a male and a female. These photos were personally taken by himself. He said he once saw body parts inside a landed craft. He went on to say a number of colleagues have suffered radiation-type injuries. He came across more female cases than male. Once the collectors had collected the body, it would be taken to a U.S. base in North Scotland. The remains were placed in freezers and autopsies carried out. He said they often saw burn marks on the ground at sites. Sometimes trees would be twisted almost in full circles. Derek later washed his hands of the photos and handed them to researcher Tony Dodd, but Dodd never released them. He passed away in 2009. The story sounds fantastic, but it is not beyond the realm of possibility that there would be some sort of organized recovery group run by the U.S. government, especially if they have been aware of the phenomenon since at least the 40s. You know, this one sounds like the most likely one to me. This one doesn't even sound remotely fantastical.
Are you being sarcastic?
No, I'm being completely serious. Like, this one sounds like the realest one to me.
And there is maybe something we can dig back into this one again at some point. There is another website that links in. Maybe we can go a little bit more in depth into some of those cases at some point. But yeah, dude, the more that we're going into this, the more I feel like this is a huge... Okay, so getting into the whole disclosure thing. As they're starting to release information, everything that's publicly talked about, the one thing that they tend to avoid is abductions. Like, you never hear about that in any of these any of the big cases where they're talking about the UFO stuff now. Go even farther in, you know, even the UFO circles aren't talking about this stuff because they're repressing the information so well. Like, considering how prevalent this is, considering how horrifying this is, like, I am absolutely shocked that I've honestly not really heard anybody from the UFO community really talk about this stuff.
Well, and a lot of, granted, there could be, you know, different factions of extraterrestrials out there, but, you know, this whole benevolent space brothers idea, and they're here to aid in our evolution and our enlightenment and, you know, our growing consciousness and all that good stuff. I mean, this pretty much goes directly opposed to all that. So, I mean, granted, it could be, like I said, 2 different factions, but this doesn't neatly fit into that narrative.
It's almost like they're creating like human Frankensteins. You know what I mean? Like you take enough pieces of all these different things, maybe you can splice them all together. And going into the human aspect of things, that would definitely be something that would be beneficial to the elites to be able to have the ability that if they got an arm blown off, they could just replace the arm. So, I mean, could it possibly be an extension of possible early experiments on seeing if you can reconnect body parts or remove body parts to put into other places? Like just looking for the opportunity to have a messing of parts to see what you can put back together to see what will potentially work.
And hell, this could even tie back into the Tom Brady clone dog shit that we were talking about last week.
Dude, think about it. You have an exact clone of yourself. You could literally have any body part that you would need. The scary part is whether or not it actually becomes conscious, because if it becomes a conscious being, essentially you are just taking a living, breathing, conscious thing and stealing its body parts. But, you know, on the other side, if you were able to reproduce some type of a clone that, for example, you know, maybe didn't develop with a brain because you're able to genetically remove the ability for it to produce a brain, you would literally just have a human body that you could essentially just take and remove any part that you would possibly need, and it would be an exact DNA match for exactly what you need.
Yeah, like you said, it's modern day Frankenstein.
Literally. All right, hopping back in. Number 8, Brazil, 2004. And I apologize that I keep getting these Spanish articles, so hopefully I won't come across any Spanish names in this one. In the locality of Santa Isabel, municipality of Greater São Paulo, near Guaria, I'm already fucked. It was all right. Right in the first sentence, it's already like, here's 3 or 4 words for you.
It's in Brazil. That's all you guys need to know.
Yeah. On June 24th, 1999, Mrs. Alzira Maria de Jesus, or no, it'd be Jesus because it's Spanish. I got to pronounce it properly. Alzira Maria de Jesus was found dead in her bed. And around 8 p.m., some versions say it was around 9 p.m. In the morning, her daughter-in-law, housewife Sonia Apacinia da Rocha, 25-year-old, was taking coffee to her mother-in-law who was in her room because, damn, this one's really bad with typos. Yeah, because due to her advancing age, she needed special care and spent most of her days in bed. When the daughter-in-law entered the room, she found her mother-in-law immobilized in bed. Called a few times and got no answer. Frightened, she left to call her husband, newsboy Manro Evidenta de Silvia, 39, the victim's son. Upon returning home, almost 40 minutes later, Sonia sees Alziria's body with her face completely disfigured and practically without flesh. Another version says that it was the son who saw the deformed mother. The skin, flesh, nose cartilage, tongue, eyes, and left ear were surgically removed, leaving no trace of blood, even on the white pillow, which that gets even weirder. There wasn't even a trace of blood on the white pillow with the face completely removed. Like, you guys can't see these pictures, but like, it's just skull and blood.
So literally face peelers here.
Yeah, literally face peelers. Our police report was filed at the city police station under number 145-99 on the 24th of June. In necroscopic examination 473-99 by the Legal Medical Institution of Guarulhos, the 2 responsible coroners stated that bilateral phenomena and septic shock killed the...
I think it's a bilateral pneumonia.
There it is. Sorry, I keep getting all the medical examination notes, everybody. Coroners stated that... Okay, how'd you say that again? Go ahead.
Bilateral pneumonia, I believe.
There it is. And septic shock killed the pensioner and that her face had been gnawed by rodents.
So her face was completely gnawed off by rodents in 40 minutes?
Yeah, with no blood whatsoever. Because apparently, you know, rats are that clean. They lick every single drop of blood, apparently.
Okay.
However, the medical version is contested by the police itself and by parties involved in the case. In the 3 years I've lived here, I've never seen a single mouse, said Sonia. I came to think of acid and even something from another world, she commented. The head delegate of Santa Isabel, Welsias Norcia, whatever, this person's name is fucking impossible, 34-year-old, 10 years in the profession, thinks that the expertise version is practical and comfortable. There was no trace, neither on the bed nor the pillow. Furthermore, the white blouse she was wearing did not show any marks either. It was very strange, he said. I ruled out the hypothesis of murder, but not the supernatural. The delegate also said he did not accept the version of the rodents. Rats leave marks. Her face looks like it was cut with the help of a scalpel, and more. How could the body still be warm when we arrived, if a few hours had passed since the pensioner was found dead? Questioned the delegate, who said he intended to take the investigations to the last consequences, even if he has to ask the opinion of specialists from North America. Originally, this case was published in the Riviera di Radio 89 FM of San Paulo, soon after being replicated in blogs, which, despite being a music magazine, spoke of other topics such as behavior, and the column dedicated to the supernatural called Azurio Z, possible relationship with extraterrestrials. At the time, some people claimed that the night before the event, balls of light were seen flying in this rural region, and in early hours of the morning, animals such as dogs, geese, and others began to make intense noises, persisting throughout the night. By the time Sonia left the house for the payphone, everything was absolutely silent. Such reports made many enthusiasts of extraterrestrial phenomenon claim that aliens would be related to the case. To me, it seems absurd that beings from another planet would come to our planet to mutilate an elderly woman who is already dead, or would have been killed by aliens. But researchers of UFO phenomenon correlate aliens to several cases of human and animal mutilation. And one of the most famous cases of that type that occurred here in Brazil was the Guillermo case. And that was one of the ones you talked about a little bit earlier, which occurred on September 29th, 1988 in the south regions of Sao Paulo. Corpse of a man was found with strange marks on the body, similar to marks found in animals supposedly attacked by aliens. There's an article if anybody wants to go and check that one out. There has been several other face peelers or Persilias in Peru. On September 28th, 2013, a faceless body was found.
Got to stop you right there. Wasn't one of the other cases it just said on September 28th as well? No, that was September 29th. 29th. Kind of an odd connection, though.
Yeah, I was going to say I almost skipped right past that. But yeah, still pretty close within the date. I mean, also, actually, no, it would have been in the same country. I was going to say if it was different time zones, it could have correlated. But apparently there was peeler cases back in 2013. I was not aware of this because the, Peruvian face peeler phenomenon was happening in what, like 2002 maybe? Or not 2002, 2022 maybe?
Yeah, just a handful of years ago.
So I'm already learning something new about the Peruvian face peelers. So getting into this one then, there has been several other face peelers or Pelacerias in Peru. On September 28, 2013, a faceless body was found in Lake Amiria near Posuria in Peru. There were no signs of drowning, beating, animal attacks, or use of slashing weapons. Locals spoke of ships and the face peelers phenomenon. And there, of course, are some pictures and some news articles if anybody wants to go and check that out. And hey, look, there's Tim Alberino, the guy that we talked about when we did talk about face peelers in the 2018 version, or the 2000. Oh, there he goes, right there, 2023. So we have a confirmation on when those ones were happening.
All right. So you want to just move on to number 9?
Yeah, unless you got any comments that you want to make on that last one, up to you.
I think I'm good. I'll kind of try to start breezing through these a little bit quicker since we're going long on time tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot of pictures for the second half, so this should breeze a lot faster. The majority of the pictures are the second half, so.
All right, guys, we got to take another break. We'll be right back. And now we're getting back to the bizarre.
Okay. So this one also happened in Brazil, and it occurred on the 22nd of June, 2009. It says a 17-year-old female, Lissandra Hartz Bento, was found dead with eyes, lips, and tongue missing and extraction holes, lack of blood surrounding body. So that's, very typical of what we've seen in the earlier pictures. An Anon researcher has kindly written an article comparing with an animal mutilation. There's a graphic here showing the human mutilation picture side by side with like a cattle mutilation.
Even with the lips removed, that's also a really bizarre detail that I haven't even really fully noticed on the cattle mutilation that correlates. But yeah, that's also removed on them too.
The animal case is a young calf, only a few months old, discovered in the hills of the UK by a hiker. Same town where in November of 1980, a missing 56-year-old mine worker was found dead on top of a coal pile with strange wounds on his body, but nothing to indicate how he died. Alan Godfrey, the police constable who discovered the body, claimed to have been stopped by a dazzling illuminated UFO in the middle of the road 6 months later and experienced missing time. In 2 independent regressions by 2 separate psychologists, Godfrey recounted buried memories of being abducted and examined by beings that said they were not human. The human case is Lysandra Hartz-Bento, 17-year-old resident of the port town of
Imbituba? Yeah, I'm going to just go with that.
Brazil. Her body was discovered in a wasteland some distance from the BR-101 highway on June 23rd, 2009. A 37-year-old man believed to have been romantically involved with Lysandra was arrested and appeared in court, but no evidence was found linking him to the crime, and he was released. It is still not clear who killed Lysandra or why or even how. If you look closely at the images, the calf is missing the left side of its jaw, its left ear, its genitals, and its anus. The edges of the cuts are perfectly smooth, suggesting surgical precision. Despite the deep cuts and removal of organs, there is very little blood on the ground and no blood on the animal's fur. There is no sign of insect activity on the body.
Which also, to throw in, correlates with that pillowcase and the white clothes with that last woman in the last case. That no blood found anywhere near the scene.
This pattern has been seen in thousands of animal mutilation cases and since, including such recent cases as the cattle mutilation wave in Oregon in 2019. In Lysandra's case, there is no blood on the ground around her body, no blood on her clothes, and very little blood around the wound, as if the body had been drained of blood before the wounds were made.
That'd be one way of doing it, I guess.
Her eyes and lips have been completely removed, apparently with a great deal of care and surgical precision. There are deep round punctures in her armpit. We haven't seen that before. And pelvic area. Some of the muscles appear to have been taken from her left bicep. So that's the first time we've seen this as well, I think. Through one of these punctures, causing the upper arm to appear shrunken. Lysandra is not the only such case to occur in Brazil, less than 500 miles away and 21 years earlier. Another human mutilation occurred. The pattern of missing eyes and jaw flesh, round puncture wounds, missing organs, and near complete lack of blood seen on Lysandra is nearly identical to the famous case of Joaquin Sebastio Goncalves, 53, who was discovered mutilated next to a reservoir in... You want to do your gargling sound for this one?
San Paulo.
Sao Paulo, Brazil. On September. So this is the case we just talked about. Yep. An analysis of this case and photos can be found here, but again, please be aware they're extremely graphic.
Just to throw that one in there, we can't say that one enough. So let me see here. We got about, I think, three left that we can breeze through. Do you want to hit all of these, or do you want to skip through some? I mean, I feel like we've made it this far. We might as well at least touch base on the last ones, because some of these ones are the most graphic ones. So I guess we'll
we'll go ahead and do it and just kind of play it by ear and maybe skip some sections if we need to.
Yeah, we'll just try to breeze through the end because we want to give you guys as much information as possible on this one. So number 10, further Brazil cases. 36-year-old SCP went missing on the night of the 27th of June, 2019 in Brazil. Neighbors state that they saw 2 men leaving his house, one driving off with his car. The next day, the police were called to S's house. It had been trashed. Various items had been stolen and bloodstains were found on the floor. On the morning of September 29th of June, S's body was found. He had been shot dead. His car was found the next morning. S was a professor of acroecology and a militant of the LGBT cause. A prosaic explanation is provided, but again, usual hallmarks: missing eyes, lips, suction marks, and the lack of blood around the body. So try to link this one in with the crime, but again, you go back to this actual body and it fits the motif of basically everything else that we've been talking about. So another weird one.
All right, so the next one, pre-1994, possibly South America. UFO researcher Karen Lester recounts an experience back in New Zealand in 1994. Let me set the scene. Back in 94, I was approached by a physician living here in New Zealand who wished to meet with me to get my opinion on something that had been disturbing him for some time now. He refused to tell me what the matter was about and kept insisting he needed to show me something. I've had my share of cracks over the years and would have relegated this individual into that category if it weren't for something in his voice and manner that conveyed the honest conviction of his request. I asked him to meet at my home, but he preferred not to and instead chose a little cafe in the center of town as our meeting place. He did not give me his name, and at that particular time, he had retired from the medical profession. I arrived at the cafe at 12:30, and since he had told me to go to the back, that is where I headed for. Being lunchtime, the cafe was nearly full, and as I walked past the tables to the rear, I saw a man who was sitting alone, facing my direction, get up and move towards me. He obviously knew who I was, and there was no hesitation in his eye contact with me, nor his stride towards me. He introduced himself and gestured for me to join him at his table. Wow, we're getting a lot of detail with this.
My apologies. There's only 12 on here, by the way, so this is number 10. So if you want to hit them, there's only 2 more after this. So one of them's really short. The next one's a little bit shorter than this one. And I guess we might as well finish the article since we're that close to it, right?
All right, so there were only 2 seats at the table, one facing the wall and the other one facing opposite, which meant I would have my back to the wall. I began to take the seat nearest to me, which meant that I would have been facing the wall. He quickly gestured that he didn't want me sitting there and asked me to change seats. At that moment, I didn't understand why on earth he wanted that, but the look on his face told me that he had a reason for asking me. Later, of course, I realized that by sitting with my back to the wall, with no one behind me, gave me the opportunity to view what he had brought to show me without the risk of others being able to see what I was looking at. After we were both seated, he thanked me for meeting with him. He then proceeded to tell me how he had recently come back from a trip to the United States, where during that time he had stayed with another physician friend who was of his who worked for the U.S. military.
Getting into some weird stuff.
Yep. They had been friends and colleagues for a number of years. He proceeded to tell me that during the visit, his friend had seemed extremely agitated and wasn't his normal self at all. Something weighed heavily on the man's mind. 3 days into this stay, they were having dinner, and his friend had been drinking heavily, which was something strange in and of itself, as he had not seen. As the evening progressed, his friend had started discussing how they had recently seen something very disturbing to him, and he needed to share it with him. He said he had been working late one night at the base where he was stationed when he was told that there had been an accident and they were bringing a body to which he was to do a preliminary examination of. He then proceeded to detail the night's events and how the body was brought in with horrific injuries like he had never seen before in all of his years in the medical career. He said the body had been mutilated. An eye was missing, an ear. Photos had been taken of the victim, as had been found. It was these 2 photos that he brought to show his friend, and it was the same photos that were now in the possession of the physician who sat opposite me in the cafe. He told me that his friend had asked him to hold on to the photos in case anything happened to him, as he just didn't feel safe anymore, and besides, he hated having them around. I had listened to what was being told to me, little interruption. Now I have seen alleged human mutilation photos before, once by a colleague who had shown me 2 photos of a naked man's body with the classic signs that accompany the cattle mutilations that I am very familiar with. I've also seen a photo in one of the UFO magazines. I now realize why I'd been asked to sit with my back to the wall. Before he handed me the photos, he asked me if I had studied many cases of mutilations. I explained to him explained to him that nothing was a certainty in the field, but I'd seen hundreds of cases and read all the reports, including the autopsy notes. So was very familiar with the wounds sustained in the alleged mute cases. He seemed satisfied with that answer, and so brought out the photos from his breast pocket and handed them to me. Now, since I was unable to keep the photos or make detailed notes of them, there were 2 photos. The first was the full frontal of a white male, and the second was the same male that had been turned on his stomach so this was the other side of the victim. The photo had been taken at a field of lush green pasture. It was difficult to determine how old he was, as the face had been so disfigured that age could not be determined. However, the physical appearance of the body was in quite good shape. Estimate that he was 20 to 35. His facial injuries were almost exactly what I had seen time and time again in the cattle mutilation cases. His left eye had been surgically removed, including the eyelid. His lips had been removed in a very clean and precise cut, so had his left ear, and the left-hand side of his jaw had been removed. Taking part of the jawbone and teeth with it, the incision along the jawline had extended past the removed segment of the jawbone to include a further strip of tissue that stopped about 2.5 inches from the base of the chin.
Which seems to be a common thing with the cattle stuff, if you haven't noticed. I just want to throw that in, that it doesn't stop at the lip. It goes back to like mid-jaw.
Yeah. So no blood around the wounds, no blood on the ground, no blood anywhere. Next, I looked at the torso, saw 2 very clean cookie cutter pieces that had been removed from the chest area. These would have measured approximately 2 inches in diameter. Again, no blood. I have often wondered about the lack of blood, yada, yada, yada. Let's see. In this case, however, with the victim being human, if there had been spillage of blood, there was certainly no trace from what I could see. It had either been cleaned away or wasn't there in the first place. I moved down the photo to the genital area. The sexual organs had been completely removed. Again, no blood. The only injury on the second photo was the entire rectum had been completely cored out. There we go.
There you go.
Cored out rectum. Which left a very large cavity.
Well, yeah, I'd assume so.
This was a very familiar sight, as most cattle mutilations have exactly the same thing. If you haven't seen this before, then it's much... If you haven't seen this before...
If you haven't seen an asshole drilled out before. There you go, ass drilling. There's another terminology for it.
Then it's much like... we got a great description here. Then it's much like taking an apple and using a corer to remove the inside/pips. You are left with an extremely clean incision, and the core has been plugged right out. Well,
my butthole is quivering.
For all of you out there. After I looked at the pictures for quite some time, I looked up physician, had a look on his face, was quite resigned. We sat there, discussed things for quite some time. He didn't seem all that interested in telling me much. Okay, so I think that's good enough for this one.
Yeah, that's the premise of it. Just the usual continuous signs that we keep seeing through almost all of these cases. The cookie cutter wounds in the chest, which obviously was probably used to remove and suck something out. And there is a bunch of diagrams going through here that are just like 3D representations if anybody wants to check out where these wounds were exactly. But hopping into number 11, and there are only 12 of these, so we're just about done here, and these next 2 are a little bit shorter. So, yeah, we'll try to wrap this one up for you guys, except I lost my place. Got to go back and find it. All right. Ben Mazar, Egypt, December 29th, 2005. I'm including this case in the list as it exhibits high strangeness. 10 people, including several infants, were found mutilated and killed in the village of Shams El Din in Upper Egypt on December 29, 2005. The victims were found with body parts and genitalia removed. Their stomachs and throats had been slashed. The victims were from 3 families, 6 adults, 3 males, and 3 females, and 4 children. The oldest was 11 years old, or the eldest child was 11 years old. When they were discovered, the victims were in a stage of recent rigor mortis. The faded blood splatter patterns indicated they had been bled to death. Some of the adults had defense cuts on their hands, the bodies had cuts on their hands and throats, and the stomachs had been slashed. In the case of the males, both the adults and the children had their genitalia removed. The women had their stomachs slashed open all the way back to the top of the rectum. Damn, that's a big cut, just to point that one out. Police had charged that Adel Lafi was mentally disturbed and had claimed responsibility for the killings. Cairo S. Abar Mental Hospital, however, reported that Abdul Lafar was mentally healthy. The following day, the forensics expert, Colonel Hassan Anwar, testified that there had been no biological or physical evidence since it was almost impossible to get fingerprints off of the type of brick and door used in country houses. The lawyer for the defense refuted this, asked why a fingerprint expert hadn't accompanied the police to the scene of the crime, and asked if they really thought it would be possible for someone to clamber through the roofs of the neighboring houses without attracting attention or setting off guard dogs or a fixture of villages. The head coroner, Dr. Fanta, said that the entire village had known that Abdul Lafar had mental problems. he had been undergoing treatment. However, the defense attorney, Talet El-Sadat, pointed out that there was no evidence against the defendant. The witnesses had given contradictory statements, and all of the evidence was circumstantial. Such had been made of the defense's mental history. He had no motive or intended means of committing the crimes. He also questioned how anyone with diminishing mental capacity would conceal weapons but not make any attempt to conceal a crime or escaping. Abdul was later acquitted. The culprit has never actually been found. All right, guys, this is our last break, so hold on tight.
And now back to the show.
And this should be the last article for this one.
Okay, so this is 26th of July, 2016, in the Dingley Cliffs of Malta. All right, so Mike Mansholt's body had been found at the bottom of a cliff on July 26, 2016. The Maltese magisterial inquiry into the incident had concluded that Mike, age 17, died of natural causes, and the police consider the case closed, a police spokesman confirmed. On July 8th of 2016, Mike visited Malta on vacation. He was alone and was staying in a hotel in Salima. While in Malta, he met his girlfriend who left the island before him. The last traces of Mike was a voice message he sent to his father on July 18th, in which he spoke about enjoying the challenge of cycling in Malta. The following day, he did not return the rented mountain bike. On July 22nd, he failed to land at Bremen Airport. As expected, the family flew to Malta to join a nationwide search for the teen. On July 26th, at about 10 a.m., a police search party found Mike's body about 10 stories below street level near the Magdalene Chapel. Haven't we talked about the Magdalene Chapel before?
It sounds really familiar, but I can't quite place it.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about, I don't know if there's more than one Magdalene Chapel. There probably is with like just Mary Magdalene. But anyway, just something kind of sounded familiar about that to me. But anyway, Mike was laying in a rock depression. His bike hung a few feet up in a bush. His sunglasses and sports shoes were a little further down. It was established that the damage to the bicycle was not compatible with the fall from that height. Mike's bike was barely damaged. It only had a flat tire and a few scratches on the frame. Mike's father had flown over for the search. Once the body was found and he was able to take a look, Bernd Mansholt himself saw just a bite mark on the neck and an abrasion on the arm. A post-mortem carried out in Malta concluded that Mike had been dead for between 7 and 8 days. The cause of death, however, was never established. Questions started emerging when his body was eventually sent back home to Germany. A month later, both the Maltese and German post-mortem concluded that the teenager had no broken bones, all but excluding the possibility of a fall. In addition, the Medical University of Hanover uncovered that Mike's body was devoid of the heart, brain, neck organs, lungs, liver, pancreas, adrenal glands, the right kidney, the bladder, the stomach, and the small intestine. The only organs found were his left kidney, diaphragm, spleen, and large intestine, they said. This added to the mystery of the circumstances. All right, so just jumping in real quick, it sounds to me like he didn't even have like the suction cup holes or like anything outwardly removed, just like all his fucking organs were gone is what it sounds like.
Like the brain, I don't know if they made reference to the skull being cracked open, but how would you remove a brain without cutting the head open? Like, I feel like there would have been a reference to
any of these things without cutting the body open.
Well, I'm glad we stuck around because I think this, other than the UK one, this one is probably the absolute weirdest one. Like, in the fact that the brain, the adrenal glands, like, oh, these are all, every single one of those is like check-in and mark in another box.
So this added to the mystery of the circumstances in which Mike's body was found. Mike had no broken bones, and his belongings, including his backpack, which according to relatives included his phone and GoPro, were never found. The family questioned this. The medical legal expert appointed by the Maltese courts told the father his son's organs had been attacked by rodents.
There's
and
another
the
one.
brain had liquefied. It was Sandhill cranes.
Yeah, it had to have been Sandhill cranes. You know, they liquefy brains when you hear their flaps.
However, the German postmortem found nothing of the sort. There was no evidence of rodent bites except for a bite on the neck and an abrasion on the forearm. Neither was there any evidence that the corpse had been invaded by rodents or animals. The German autopsy could not conclude on the cause of death since too many organs were missing.
See, this seems like the typical thing where it's almost like the cryptid cases where, clearly there was something weird that attacked somebody and they're just like, yep, animals, must have been animals. Same thing with this. Yeah, nothing to see here. Some guy's brain is removed without the skull being removed, and all of the inside body parts are removed without any damage to the outside, but it must have been animals. They must have just got inside of him somehow and just ate everything out of the inside, except for a few key organs. And this isn't really like a full one. There's just one last picture, but it basically just says, notice the lack of blood around her body. And it was from a female who was 17 years old in Brazil, again, constantly with this Brazil thing, on February 17th, 2020. This seems to be a really, really common thing in South America, even going into like the face peelers and everything. But going into this image, it definitely has those cookie cutter marks, as we were talking about a little bit previously. The eyes are removed, and also, again, a lack of blood. And it also looks like there may be a cookie cutter incision on the inside of her upper thigh, up near where like her reproductive organs would be. So I'm assuming that either one, this is a continuation of the reproductive organs being removed, or maybe it's another drill hole of some sort. But yeah, yet another weird, fascinating case that comes out of Brazil.
Yeah, so kind of rounding this one out, my thoughts on it are, first off, Shane, thank you for bringing this article for us to talk about tonight. When you told me what we were going to be talking about, I had no idea it was going to have so many connections to other things. I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me, like you said, all these cases happening in South America, specifically Brazil, that's really interesting to me. And then, like I said, just all the connections between the missing 411 phenomena and this. So, I mean, I think whatever is going on with this human mutilation, there's a lot of overlap with missing 411, whether that be, extraterrestrial or some sort of, elite human hunting games. I don't know, some combination of the two, but very interesting to me, and I think there's definitely a lot more to unpack in this.
See, I think there's a correlation with a lot of these being in South America. Even possibly being the fact that a lot more people in South America acknowledge the supernatural and the paranormal. Mm-hmm. So they're a lot more prone to be open about, hey, we're seeing something weird happen. So I feel like this is something that's happening all over the world. It's just a matter of the only reason you're getting the reports out of South America is because they're more open to the possibility of something weird happening. And they also don't appear to try to hide things from their citizens, because on the regular news in South America, dude, you got UFOs, you got all this crazy stuff, dude. Like they're just a lot more open about this stuff. I mean, even think about like the exorcisms, for example. Most of the like crazy exorcisms you see where people are speaking in clearly not their voice, like a little girl in a deep voice, like all of that stuff always comes from South America too, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes perfect sense. Like we said, in the more kind of advanced Western countries, it seems like there's almost processes and procedures in place for handling these sort of things and covering them up. So, I mean, between their more spiritual bend in South America and, just kind of the economic situation down there, I think it makes a lot of sense why a lot of these stories are coming from there when, like you said, they're probably going on all over the place.
Or if it is elite hunting groups, I guess South America would be the place to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, either way, it makes sense. All right, Shane, you got anything else on this one?
Nope, that should be it for this one. I'm sure this will probably be something that we bring up a lot more on the show going on in the future. But for the time being, at least we had to lay down the premise of the phenomenon, because I think this is the first time we've talked about human manipulation on the show. So we may be one of the only shows that have really talked about this, because I really haven't heard too many shows talk about it. So figured that it was a perfect opportunity for us to do it.
Yeah, definitely excited to see what future connections we turn up with this whole category of strange UFO / alien abduction, human mutilation topics that, like you said, a lot of people don't talk about. But anyway, closing this out, if you guys are interested in supporting the show or getting up with us for any reason whatsoever, Shane, tell them how they can do that.
First and foremost, you guys can always go and check out our Patreon with 2 tiers available, ad-free / early access, and full access with 7-day free trials available. There's going to be a lot of new stuff going on in 2026 as far as the Patreon goes. So hopefully you guys will check it out and see what it's all about. And there's another way that you guys can support us. How can they do that, Orin?
You can check out the Bizarre Reality merch store with t-shirts starting at the absurdly low and oddly specific price of just $15.68 plus shipping. Wowzers.
How bizarre and perfect for Christmas. And I know times are tough out there, but if you guys would like to support the show in some other ways, and I can definitely understand that, especially considering that the holidays are coming up. But again, if you guys want to show some love, especially around this Christmas season, you guys can always leave a review or rating for the show anywhere that you guys happen to listen to the show. And of course, once we find it, we'll read it on the show and give you guys a big shout out. And Orin, as we always say, what are the rules for that?
1 stars and 5 stars only.
And we'll either love you or ridicule you. That's the game. Have fun with it, everybody.
I mean, with me, there's a fine line between love and ridicule, so that's not going to be tough.
It's kind of the same thing, right?
Absolutely. You guys can also follow the show on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. I mean, just do all the internet things. You guys know how the internet works.
And of course, share the show, grassroots, because word of mouth is the absolute best way for the show to continue to grow.
And you can always catch live shows and all of our other video content. And if you guys have some free time, please check out and show some love to our friends of the show. We got our buddies Rick and Hans with I Know Squatch for all your Squatchy gear needs. We got our buddy Dave, a.k.a. the Snarly Yow with Snarly Yow Natural Products, And we've got our buddy Joe with Cryptoteology for, you ready for it? You ready for it, Shane?
I'm not ready. What is it? What is it?
It's your wearable cryptids.
And if you have some additional time, don't forget to go and check out our other awesome friends with affiliate links, Dimension Devices, to get yourself some paranormal investigating equipment. And you guys can also go and check out Sticker Mule to get yourself some stickers, t-shirts, anything like that for your business, podcast, whatever you happen to use. And there's some additional discounts and credits available for you guys down there, such as a $10 free credit for Sticker Mule. And more information on that is available down in the show notes.
And as always, all this shit we've mentioned is in the link tree in the show description,
including all of the many different ways to contact us and get up with us. But just like this show tended to do, it got really, really strange, really, really, dare I say, bizarre. So always stay bizarre, but maybe not as bizarre as today's episode. Bizarre.
I'm going to core out your rectum.
My butthole's quivering.
Daddy, chill.